guys, Mary Beth Temple here from Hooked for Life. Welcome to Yarnspirations.com. In this video, we're going to take a closer look at the Panda-monium knit hat and mitts for baby. It comes in two sizes. One is 6 to 12 months, one is 18 to 24 months, and it is made in Bernat Softy Baby Chunky. Two colors. The cream puff is our main color and Nighty Night is our contrast color. You'll need one ball of each for the small size, two of main color, one for the contrast for the larger size. You'll need US 10.5 or 6.5 millimeter and US 11, which is 8 millimeter knitting needles, a set of 4 US 10.5 or 6.5 millimeter double pointed knitting needles or size to get gauge. And you'll also need a stitch marker and two safety pins. Now we're going to use those two safety pins as stitch holders. So if you had a teeny tiny stitch holder or some waste yarn, that would work too. So the hat is cast on at the front, knit towards the back, and there is an unusually placed seam that we're going to look at on the video. Then you do some pick up and knit for the ribbing. You make the I-cord ties. You knit the little mitts on the double pointed needles, and all of the black paw print is put on in duplicate stitch. Let's see if I can get the right page. You're going to put that on with duplicate stitch. You'll also need, if I didn't say so, I don't remember, a stitch marker. So two sizes of circulars, two colors of yarn, set of double pointed needles, some safety pins, and a stitch marker, and of course a tapestry needle. So let's get started by taking a look at the hat. Now the first thing I want to talk about is this sweet little hat. It is knit back and forth in rows. The shaping is somewhat unusual. It is almost a bonnet style, so you have cast on at this front edge and worked your ribbing, and then worked for the number of stitches and rows specified in the pattern, and then done some crown decreases, and then you're going to finish that off and make a 2-inch seam down the back. So let's take a look at what that looks like in real life. So again, I've cast on at what will be the front edge with the smaller needles. I've done my knit 2 purl 2 rib. I've changed to the larger needles and done my stocking stitch, again as specified in the instructions for the size that you're making. And then I have done my crown decreases right here, and I have left with 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 stitches left on the needle when I'm finished. I've left a long tail for the sewing up, which I have cut, and then I have threaded my tapestry needle on there. So what I need to do now is use the tapestry needle and just go back through the stitches and draw them tightly up into a circle. So I'm going through the stitches. Be careful not to split the plies like I just did. With your tapestry needle, make sure that you're going through the stitch and not through the plies. All right, let's get rid of that needle because I don't need it anymore. And then I'm just going to pull this up tight, 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 tight. And then to make it a circle. Now I could have gone and started in this direction, gone in that direction instead of what I did, but I find sometimes that makes that first couple stitches don't want to tighten up nice. So there is my circle. I personally like to go ahead and go through those stitches again with the tapestry needle. Again, this is not a deal breaker. It's not absolutely what you have to do, but I like to go through a second time because there is a lot of stress on that top circle when you're wearing it, and I like to go through a second time and tighten that up. Now, instead of knotting this off and ending it off, the next set of instructions tell me I'm going to sew a seam for 2 inches down the back, 2 inches or 5 centimeters. Let's see if I can find that on the pattern. So what we did was break yarn, leaving a long end, thread the end through the remaining stitches and draw up tightly, fasten securely, using the end, so a center back seam 2 inches or 5 centimeters long. So what I'm going to do is take my measuring tape, my handy dandy measuring tape, and I'm going to measure down 2 inches from the top of the row. So that puts me about here. And I'm going to mark that with a stitch marker, a locking stitch marker. Again, you can use a safety pin or a piece of waste yarn, or you can eyeball it if you want. But I'm going to go ahead and sew my seam 2 inches down the center back. I like to just use a mattress stitch because that is the easiest to me. Once again, try not to split the plies. It's kind of hard with a tapestry needle, and since this is a chunky yarn, it's not going to be the end of the world if you do split a ply, but it is so much neater if you do not. So I try and get it. Let's see, that's a good choice. And let's go right here. And I know I do this in all my videos, but what I like to do is make the mattress stitch fairly loose to begin with and go back and tighten it up once I see that it is evenly spaced. Remember, when you go back, you are going down where you came up, and there are some decreases near the edge, so I can't just keep going up that same column because then I'm going to wind up over here. I'm going to make sure that I'm heading towards the outside edge and that I am not letting my mattress stitch seam get in the way of my crown decreases, because I always want that mattress stitch to be pretty near to the outside edge. Let's see. I'm going to just go under there right now. And I'm going to come back to here, and I'm coming out by my stitch marker. And then I want to make sure that I've got, just going to double check and make sure I have it all nice and even, which I do. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that seam tight. Let me get that marker out of the way. It might be a little easier without the marker in the way. And just tighten that up a little bit at a time. All right, and it does look like I have split the ply here, which I did not want to do, so I'm going to just undo this little section right here. I'm going to take it right out of the needle. This was not what I intended to show you, but since I've made a mistake, let's go ahead and show you how to fix it. So all I'm going to do is undo just a couple of rows of the mattress stitch because it looks like I split a ply, and because I split a ply, it doesn't want to pull nice. So let's just undo it. Yep, it's right there. Let me show you. You can see that I split the ply right there. So I'm going to pull that out so as not to make a mess. All right, now that should pull up nice and tight. We got a little bit of a booger in here from where it was pulled up, but I think that's going to cover right up in the seam. So I'm going to go ahead and put my tapestry needle back on. Well, and now you know how to fix that if you mess it up. Once again, going down where I came out, being very careful not to split the ply because we just saw what a mess that can make. And I'm going to go just a couple more stitches down, well, a couple more rows down, more to the point. And I had taken my marker out because I thought that that was in the way. So let me go to here, and I'm going to take my tape measure back out and make sure I have my 2 inches. All right, there's my very tippy top of the row. And I did just the easiest bit more than 2 inches, and I'm going to go ahead and let that slide, tighten up my mattress stitch, and then I'm going to go ahead and end that off. And weave in my ends later. At this point, I'm going to pick up and knit my ribbing stitches. So depending on what size you're making, we're now at the part of the pattern that says bottom ribbing. I'm going to pick up and knit 38 or 42 stitches evenly across the lower edge of hat. So the lower edge of hat now is here. It starts way over here, and I'm going to go all the way across and pick up either my 38 or my 42 stitches. Because I have this center seam right here, I know that I want to have half the number of stitches I need to pick up on either side. So if I was doing 38, half of 38 would be 19. So I know that I want 19 stitches to pick up between here and the center, 19 on the other side. That'll give me my 38. And then I'm going to follow the instructions, make my knit 2 ribbing, knit 2 purl 2 ribbing for 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters. And then I'm going to cast off in ribbing. So that's going to give me my bottom edge of the hat. And that's what makes it look like it did in the photo. Like I said, it is a slightly unusual shape, but what it does is it makes the hat cup the baby's head very nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we will talk through some other instructions on the pattern that you may need to look at. And just briefly, I want to go over the KFB or knit front and back increase that you're going to need to make the mitts. To make the mitts, you're going to cast on 20 or 24 stitches on your double pointed needles, join into a round and marking the first stitch so you know where the round begins and ends. Knit 2 purl 2 around for 1 inch, then you're going to knit 4 rounds. But I just wanted to show you briefly the KFB, the knit front and back. So to do that, you're going to knit 3 or 4, depending on what size you're making. In my case, I did the smaller size. 1, 2, 3, and I would have had my knit rounds on here, but I just made this little sample so I would be able to show you. So this is still the ribbing, but you would have knit those 4 rounds, so you'd have stocking stitch that you'd be seeing. And then you're going to KFB, that's knit front and back. So I'm going to knit in the front of the stitch and not put that stitch off the left-hand needle. Then I'm going to knit in the back of that same stitch, which gives me the increase, and then push it off the left-hand needle. So let's see that one more time. We're going to knit 2 and then KFB, knit through the front of the stitch, leave it on the left-hand needle, knit through the back of the same stitch, giving me 2 stitches in 1, which is a 1 stitch increase, then push that off the left-hand needle, and I'm going to continue to knit around for the mitts. There's nothing too fancy in there. When you get to the right place, you're going to skip 6 or 8 stitches. You're going to put those onto a safety pin, which is going to act as a stitch holder. Finish knitting your top, graph the top, then pick up and knit for the thumb, and then that is done. And then after that is done, the last thing that you need to do for the mitts is do the duplicate stitch embroidery, which is right here. So that's what they're going to look like. That's your little chart. And to do the duplicate stitch, you are merely going to use your tapestry needle and the darker colored yarn to mirror where the yarn goes in and out on the original light colored yarn stitch. So I hope you had a wonderful time here on Yarnspirations.com learning about the Panda-monium knit hat and mitts. I'm Mary Beth Temple from Hooked for Life. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again real soon.